You've just got the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 in your hands. But do you want to know how to take your footage to the next level? In the next few minutes, you're going to learn how to take your footage from this to this, using some simple tips and tricks, and we will go through how to set up your Osmo for optimized results. And I'll show you the powerful color grading techniques and power grade I've built to do this. So make sure you stick around and grab a coffee because this one is going to be good. Let's go. There's going to be a few steps before we dive into the colouring process, and these are going to be really essential if you want to capture cinematic footage on the Pocket Osmo 3. Firstly, we need to get on the Osmo 3 and enter Pro mode. We want to shoot in D-Log-M. This isn't actually a true log profile. It gives us a great starting point with its flat color profile. While we're here, we're going to make sure that we set the white balance. If you are outside, I usually float around the 5600 Kelvin, and when indoors, I'm about 4000 Kelvin. But I try to keep this as accurate as possible in different locations, and this is just going to minimize the amount of color correction that I'm going to have to do in editing. Next, we're going to head into the exposure tab, and we're going to set this to M, which is obviously manual, and in here we can control the shutter speed. Now, if you are following the 180-degree rule, then this is going to be double your frame rate. So if you are shooting 25 frames a second, then your shutter is going to be 50, and if you are shooting something like 100 frames a second, it's going to be a shutter of 200. So that's pretty easy to follow along. Just make sure you are doing that, and you will get really nice motion blur on your footage, which is essential for that cinematic feel. Now, one thing that you are instantly going to notice once you have dropped the frame rate and got the shutter speed to 180-degree rule, you're going to notice that your footage is going to be completely blown out and overexposed. So to fix this, we need to use ND filters. I'm going to leave a link in the description below to the Freewell ND pack that I picked up, which has been great, but being really small, they can be fiddly to get on and off the Osmo, and watch out for leaving lots of finger marks on there. The Osmo really does love to overexpose the image, so by using the exposure compensation tool in the Osmo, I like to set it to 0.3 for my filming, and this is just going to help retain and protect the highlights on your footage. If there's one thing that's going to be a huge giveaway that you filmed on a small action camera like the Osmo 3, it is definitely the highlights. Now, it's going to depend on the situation that you are filming, as you might have to choose between blown out or underexposed footage, especially when indoors. But I'm going to leave that up to you. It is really a little bit of a learning curve with this, but once you get it down, you will have great control of your footage. Finally, we are going to talk about the ISO range. Variable ranges work great because you don't have to be constantly messing with the settings as the light changes. So I found that it's best to set the variable range to 50 to 400 when outside, or sometimes I'll float to the 50 to 800, and at very least I will go 50 to 1600 if I need to go there, but that's really the highest I tend to go on this camera due to the introduction of really bad noise. Last couple of things is make sure that the sharpness and the noise reduction are both set to -2, and this is going to help reduce the digital horrible looking sharpness that you get with these kind of cameras, because we can add the sharpness back in post if we need to. So that is it for now. So we are good to go. Let's dive into looking at some footage. So if you've made it this far, then hopefully you've got some really good looking footage if you've followed the tips that we've just been talking about. And we're going to get into the color grading process now of how I achieve that cinematic filmic look to my Osmo footage. Now, I have put together a LUT pack and also a DaVinci POWERGRADE that you can download. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description below. There is a cost to it because I've put quite a bit of time in just to develop these for you guys, and it's going to save you a lot of time. So all the footage in in this video has been graded with either the LUT pack or the DaVinci POWERGRADE that I've put together. So there are 7 LUTs in the pack which you can just pull into your editing software of choice, be it Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut Pro. Then all you need to do is tweak your exposure and white balance for your desired overall look. As I said previously in this video, it's super important that you nail your exposure with the Osmo 3. So make sure you're sticking to a 0 or a -0.3 on your exposure compensation for optimal results with these LUTs. So those are the LUTs, and I'm going to say this, that LUTs, wherever you buy them from, aren't a one size fits all and is going to cure your footage, but it's going to give you a really good base to start your color grading work from. So if you are using them, please do let me know how you get on with them, as I would love to know. And if you need any help with them, drop in the comments. Let's head over to DaVinci Resolve and go through the POWERGRADE with the Osmo Pocket 3. So I'm just going to take you through first how I set my project up in DaVinci Resolve. So if we go into DaVinci Resolve and then we just go into project settings, we want to make sure that one, we've got the right format and frames per second. So we're working on a 25 frames per second timeline. And then we go into color management, and now how I have mine set up, I am working on a Mac computer, so I have mine set up as timeline color space set as DaVinci wide gamma intermediate, and then the output color space is set as Rec 709A. So once we've got that set up, what we're going to do is import the POWERGRADE. Next, you want to go into the POWERGRADE window and right click and go import. Go to the folder where you've downloaded the Osmo POWERGRADE, and then you're going to right click, and then that pulls in the POWERGRADE. So here's some footage, and we've pulled in the POWERGRADE. Now I haven't got anything turned on. I'm just going to take you through node by node and what they do. We've got a noise reduction node. Now I'm just going to say that some of these features in this POWERGRADE are not going to be available if you do not have the free version of DaVinci. Those aspects are going to be the noise reduction. There is a halation built into this, into the little film look mode we've built into this, and also grain. So we've got a noise reduction node. If I need to do any reduction, that is where I'll do that. Now we've got a color space transform in, and we've also got the color space transform out, and all these are doing is just taking our footage from that Rec 709 into a DaVinci wide gamma. Now you will notice that the color space transform in is set to Rec 709 gamma 2.4. Now that works best, I find, for the DJI D-Log footage. It's more of a Rec 709 look footage than it is an actual real log, and that's kind of what we're working off here. Now you get the LUTs with this POWERGRADE, and if you go into the pack, you can choose what LUT you want to build off. That gives you a retro. Let's build off the neutral look. So we've got a neutral look, we've got an exposure node, we've got a white balance, and also a saturation node. Now I'm not going to do too much here because I'm quite happy with how that is looking, but if I wanted to balance exposure, I'd use the curve, so I could pull that slightly up, just looking at my waveform here. And then I use the editable splines just to really fine tune that in. Now if you don't see the editable splines in your little waveform there, just click those 3 buttons and make sure editable splines is clicked on, and that will give you a really nice way to adjust the exposure. White balance is whatever it is. You can warm it up, cool it down. I'm quite happy with where that is falling. Saturation, if I want to put a little bit of boost of saturation in there, I can do that. And then we have the blue and green mixer. Now the blue here is just adding in with the color splice. I just add a little bit more density into the blue, but also I'm using saturation here just to push a little bit in or take a little bit out, because the Osmo Pocket 3 really loves to push that blue really high, and it doesn't really give a nice look to the actual Osmo footage. It makes it look a bit fake, in my honest opinion, and that's what I've done with these LUTs that are applying to this power grade. They really like dull down those tones and allows you to kind of really push and pull where you want to use them. The green one here is just going to really adjust the trees and the looks of the trees, basically, just to make sure you get a more of a realistic green. Sometimes the greens do tend to drift off with the Osmo for some reason. The greens and blues, they just do not play well together. But if I want to go in there, I can adjust again the saturation or the hues with the greens. So it might push a little bit more into that one, to be honest. If we go into the contrast node, if you double click on there, you have a high contrast mode, which adds a high contrast, or you have a low contrast, which just gives you a nice low contrast mode. I actually really like the low contrast, so I'm happy with that. Now the bloom, you just get a nice roll off with the bloom, and it helps to take away that digital edge that you get with the Osmo. So we've built that into there. Obviously we've got a grain node, which will add that on, just adds in the grain. Now in here, we've got a little bit of a warmer node, so you can add in a little bit of warmth if you wish. If you want to use the retro gen, so if I turn on the retro gen and go into here, you just get a chromatic aberration, which is using the prism blur, just adds a bit of a weird tinge to the edge of the high brightness areas to give that vintage look. We've got a bit of halation, and then I've added in that for a bit of gate weave. And then if you want the actual film vibe, you can add that in and it gives you that look. So let's take it from normal to vintage and see what we are thinking. So next we're going to do this scene here, which is quite a low light scene. So if we go in again to the power grade, and we're just going to pull across the DaVinci POWERGRADE, there we go. Bosh, we have a pretty good look from the get-go. Now on this I'm using the LUT, which is, let's go for retro. So as we can see here, we've got quite a good retro vibe going on. Let's do a little bit of an adjust on the exposure just to add in a bit more feel to this. So I'm quite happy with that. I'm quite liking where this is looking. These two probably do not need to be on. Contrast node, I've just got that again set to low. Quite like the low. The low is really good when you've got a low light scene, because if you push too much contrast into it, it gets really muddy in the shadows. Obviously we've got the bloom node on. You can actually see what the bloom is doing here. It's just giving that nice kind of roll off to that highlight area. And then we've got the grain. Probably don't need a lot of grain, so I'm going to turn that off actually on this one. We've got the warm node. Don't want that onto this because this is quite a warm feel already. If we go into the retro, again we can add that retro vibe, which gives that kind of greens in the highlights, which gives that almost cinematic-y film look that everyone loves to get. I'm going to turn that off, and I'm also going to turn off the gate weave that I've got there. The gate weave is just giving a bit of movement, like it's actually shot on film, although let's face it, it ain't. And then halation and chromatic aberration, gonna leave that on for thing, but that again just gives us a nice overall film look and a really nice image to your Osmo Pocket 3. Bit of footage from Hyrox when we were in Madrid. Just going to show you how I grade this one, because this one is a little bit of a different feel to it. So if we go there, instantly we can see that we have got a really orangey look. So I'm going to turn off the grain and the bloom, and I'm just going to go for the low contrast. I'm liking that. I'm going to turn off the retro. Do not want retro on this. As you can see, when I flick retro on and off, you'll see that little bounce of chromatic aberration here around this guy's body. Around the lights, if you look, you can see quite a lot of halation there. We can turn that on and off, and you get a little bit of a bounce because obviously you've got that gate weave going on. So I'm going to turn off the blues and the greens as well, because I'm quite liking that. So I'm quite happy with where we are with this. Obviously it looks quite orange because Luckily, in these lovely indoor arenas, they always have like orangey tungsten lighting. Don't know why they have that. Let's set the LUT to urban cold. So straight away, urban cold is giving us that really nice look, and we can just push a bit of contrast in using that. So we're just going to lift the tones there, the highlights, and crush that a little bit there. I'm going to add a little bit of bloom just to add that softness, and it makes the image really pop. I like that a lot. And to be honest, I'm quite happy with how that is looking. So let's have a look before and after and see where we've come. Now I'm going to take you through not using a LUT at all. You don't have to use the LUT pack if you do not wish to. So we can add a bit of warmth into there. But what we can do is just add manual contrast in with this LUT to get us a look. And we can build it around actually trying to just push the saturation in a little bit. So if we push the saturation in here, and then once again, we can add in that film vibe if you want to get that kind of filmic look. I quite like it without, to be honest. Turn off the gate weave as well on this. But overall, it's really nice to just be able to dial in a look without having to apply any LUTs. I'll show you what it looks like with no LUTs on, and then that's on from a manual grade. The great thing about this power grade is, like I show you here, you don't need to actually use the LUTs. The LUTs are just what I've built to build looks off, and it just makes it really easy. If you want to get into generating your own looks, you can really do that with this power grade, and you can just refine each section to get your own look. And that's what I love about the power grade I built. It just makes it really easy to dive in, mess around with the footage, and I know I'm going to get some kind of good look, and it's really fun to experiment. That is the DaVinci power grade. Go and download it and let me know what you think. So that's all from this video. I hope this has helped you to get some better results out of your Osmo Pocket 3. And if it has, please hit that subscribe button, as that really helps the channel. Drop some comments below if this has helped you. And I appreciate you tuning in for another video. I've been Ian Snape, and I'll see you on another one soon.